My name's Jeff St. Laurent, and I have a fantastic guest, Amber McLaughlin. Welcome. So this is a very special interview. So Amber just hired me for my 5-month group mentor coaching program. And this literally happened on Monday. So today's Wednesday as we broadcast this live. And so she came to me last week, and she was actually just inquiring about, you set it for my webinar, correct? Mm-hmm. And so I followed up with her for my webinar, and the webinar was on marketing. And I just followed up with her like, hey, curious why you signed up for my webinar. Like, what are you going through? And she told me a little bit about what was going on with her business. And I followed up with her, and she had originally was inquiring about my 14-day challenge that I ran back in December. And then I sent an email out promoting my 5-month group program. And I saw on the back end of Aweber, which is the marketing platform that I use, that she had clicked on the link to check out my program. And so as I do and as I teach, I followed up with her because I see all the people that clicked, and I'm like, hey, Amber, I saw, and we were having a conversation anyway. So in the same email thread, I'm like, hey, I saw that you clicked on my link to check out my 5-month program. Is this something you're interested in? And she wrote back. Do you remember what she wrote back?
I don't remember.
It was like, absolutely, or something. I have to go look at the email, but it was just like, it was like very positive, engaging, exclamation mark. I remember the exclamation mark because I love exclamation marks. I overuse them all the time. And I'm like, great. So let's set up a meeting and talk. So we spoke on Friday. So just to orientate you, today's Wednesday. We spoke on last Friday. And we had a great conversation. I talked about the program and everything. When we first connected, I talked about you and like where you're at in your business. And it sounded like she was in a really great position where she's like, this program would be great for me. And we got to the end where I talked about everything and I gave her the cost, and let's take it off from there. Because the biggest thing of what I'm looking to share with everyone today is we're going to take clients through a process. And there's a certain process that I teach, that I role model as well. And we get people to the end of that process. And at some point, you're going to get, if you will, the money objection. And I don't know that you gave me the money objection, like, I don't have the money. You never said I don't have the money necessarily. But let's just walk this through up to part. So rewind a little bit. So you clicked on that link in my email. What was your thought process when you did that? I want to walk people through everything.
So I think whatever I read, I just really connected with. So I was like, okay, this can help me. And I was interested. So I clicked on the link because I wanted to know more. I'm thinking that's kind of where I was. And also, I think a lot of things in my life have just kind of lined up to this point. So I was just feeling like, I don't know, it was just like the right time, the right place. Like everything just felt in alignment. And I was like, you know what? Let's just check it out. Why not?
Okay. And you didn't do anything after you checked it out. Like you just checked it out.
Yes, probably.
And why didn't you reach out or fill out that form, like to me?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of information out there, and I don't know. It just, I just didn't take that next step.
Right. And this is good. This is what I want. This is great. This is people, I want coaches to listen to this. Like, this is the consumer. It's just like people aren't reaching out or following up for sometimes any particular reason. Like you said, there's a lot of information out there. Like you were interested, you connected with it. You watched the 13-minute video. Did you watch the whole? Is a 13-minute video?
I think so. And I think I got distracted because life happens. And I think I was like, I only got like halfway through, but it was enough to really feel like, okay, yeah, this is something I'm interested in.
Yeah. So that's where so now you get my email. It was probably like the next day, I'd say, because usually I do it the next day. Just your thoughts. Now you click on an email and the next day, this guy follows up with you and says, hey, I saw you clicked on my email. So what's your impression of that as you receive this?
Well, I'm a people person. So to have that human connection to the actual person was like awesome. I was like, oh, yay. Like, this is somebody who's invested. It's not just, some pretend person somewhere. It's a real human. And it was nice. Like, it kind of re-engages you, I guess. Like, I felt re-engaged. I was like, okay, yeah, here we are again. And this is great.
Nice. And so, I said, hey, are you interested in checking this out? And you wrote back, absolutely. So then we set up a call from there. Talk to me just like going into this call that we had on Friday. What were your thoughts leading up to that? Obviously we're going to be talking about the program, et cetera. Just give us some thoughts, going to that call. What were you expecting? What were you thinking? Anything?
I was excited because, like I said, there's just a lot of things in my life that have kind of led, I think, to this place. And I'm in a place where I'm just like desperate, like, help me. And everything that I'd read, I felt like, yeah, this program could really help me. So in that respect, I was very excited because I was like, oh gosh, this is, I was hopeful, like, oh, this is going to be interesting, and excited to talk about things.
Yes. Okay. And out of curiosity, so when you're coming into that from a moving forward perspective, like, in other words, like, you knew we'd be talking about a program that at the end, if you're interested in it, I was going to say, hey, all right, well, here's how much it costs. Here's what's involved. So where were you in the buying spectrum at this point? Like, in terms of like, decided I'm all in versus just like curious to serious? Where were you on that scale?
So I was like, in my soul, 100% serious, and bought in as far as like what I had read. And then depending on our conversation, kind of gauging if I thought that it would be a good fit, being able to ask my questions and whatnot. So I was just like, I was open, but I am in this place of being open to things. So yeah, I was definitely curious and open at that point.
Okay. So in your soul, like, from what you had read, you're like, I think this sounds really good, but now I just need to hear and talk and see if all that's congruent with what I feel so far.
Exactly.
Okay. So now we have a conversation, and we're about 30 minutes in, and we spent about 15, 20 minutes talking about you and where you're at. And, from my end, and this is what I teach, right? I'm assessing like, okay, so who is this Amber person? She's obviously checking things out. She signed up for my webinar. Like, this is from my perspective, right? And so then I see she clicks on this email, and like everybody, I follow up with, hey, I saw, and then you write back enthusiastically, like, are you interested? You're like, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, but I don't get too excited because I don't know what's going on. So now I hear about you, and I'm assessing the need that you have, right? And like you just said, like, oh, I need help. Like, I'm just, all right, so this woman definitely requires help, right? So this Amber is like, all right, she wants some guidance. She values that a lot. She really wants to move her business forward. That's the need. Now, the timing wise, like, I'm going to ask you that question. Like, there's no good time. Like, if not now, when type of thing. Like, you didn't have a strong, like, oh my God, because, but you're just like, now's the time. I just need to do it.
Yeah.
All right. And so now we get to the point where, like, great. So she qualifies. That's my thought is like, now I feel like she'd be a good fit for what this program is and what it has to offer. And she values it, et cetera, which is important because if you get through the process to the end and then you give a price tag on anything, and I don't care what it is, it could be $50 or $5,000 or $10,000. If those things aren't present, then it's not going to matter. Mm-hmm. So we go through this process and you're like, Jeff, this is awesome. What were you, before we went through the details of the investment, mm-hmm. Tell us, like, where were you at that point and what were you feeling?
So when we first started talking, I was like, okay, this is good. This is everything that I need, which I was feeling just a lot of relief. And then it just sounded too good to be true. I was just like, oh God, like this is going to be a sticker shock for sure. Like I said, I went into it open, but I hadn't really thought like, oh, what am I willing to pay? Like I hadn't really gone there. But I knew as you walk through the program, I was like, this is a lot. Like it felt very personal, which is what I need. But I knew I was just ready for you to just rip the Band-Aid off and tell me.
Price. Okay. So, and I'm not afraid to talk price here as well. So, because you had inquired about my 14-day program in December, which was $49. Right. And so at the end there, you brought that up. And I remember you said, you're like, well, this feels like a lot more involved than your 14-day program. And then I got the sense that I'm like, oh, I think you might be thinking that this is some other version, and yes, more than the $49. But I think at that point, once I described, how I partner with you and what I do and how I serve and all that, by the availability you have to me, I think you were realizing like, oh, this is going to be a lot more than $49. So yeah, talk us through that part, like expectations price wise, coming from something like that.
I don't know what my expectation was. I wanted to hire a coach this year. I knew that I needed something more one-on-one-ish, if not full one-on-one. But I didn't know what that would look like. So I really was just kind of panicking. I was just like, I don't know. I have no frame of reference. But it worked out. So it was fine.
Okay. And so then I go into the cost, right? And the cost is $7,000, right? And that cost could go up over time, but right now that's where it's at. So now I give you the price. Here's all the support that I offer, blah, blah, blah. Here's what we're doing, logistics and support and outcomes, $7,000. I prefer to take it up front. Certainly happy to break up the payments if you need to. Talk us through. I throw that at you. Now what's happening?
So I wanted to vomit. I was just like, oh God, I want to do it. But I was freaking out because that isn't something I had thought about paying. Like paying that amount was not in my vernacular. Like I said, I was like open and I didn't have an expectation on price, but I definitely was like, what? Yeah.
So it shocked you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It shocked you. Like you wouldn't even have come up with that number had you even had asked or thought about it, right? It sounds like you really hadn't thought about it at the point.
Correct.
Okay. So now we're in a situation. So I'm just trying to give like time frames ish, right? So we're about like probably 40 minutes into our call at this point. All right. So now you're as an accountant as well, correct? Mother of two, one in college, one getting close to college, husband, etc. So full family, as you've said, your husband is bringing an income, but you're the quote breadwinner of the house. You know what I mean? And so just trying to give people a snapshot of her life, right? She does well for herself, like 6-figure income earner, etc. But a lot of financial responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And so at this point now, you're like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And you tell us a little bit about what you were talking through to me about the money and just your inner thoughts around the cost and your responsibilities and what you were maybe thinking you could do.
Yeah, I was definitely, like I said, I wanted to vomit and I was just kind of like, oh gosh, panicking. But the call was more like, it was a coaching call. I mean, I truly believe that. I felt like a coaching call. So I never really felt like I was being sold to. I felt in this coaching moment, and the things that we had talked about are my dreams. Like, that's what I want. And I felt that tug of like, I could see the future. And so I think the shifts started to happen where I realized, well, two things came out, because like I said, it really was more like a coaching call for me. And two things came out. And one is I realized that I have so much self-doubt. And then the other thing, which like I'm just starting out. I don't really, I have no idea what I'm doing. I love coaching, but I don't know anything about being an entrepreneur. So it is like, duh, but like for some reason in that moment, like I just felt that self-doubt so deeply. And also, my own relationship with money kind of came out, which was really surprising. And so it was like this beautiful, it was like I wanted to vomit, but I really felt like I was on the verge of something, of like this breakthrough. So I was like, I want to keep going. And you just stayed there, like, as I kind of worked through everything, which I really appreciated, because I was like, oh my God, like, how long have we been on this call? Like, poor Jeff. But I started to, because I was feeling those things, also like wanting to build my dream so bad and see that this could help me get there. I wanted to push through, and my shift happened more in like, okay, like how can I figure this out? And I was just like, like I said to you something about, like it was evident to me that I was just like giving money, but I wasn't getting anything in return as far as like financially. Mm-hmm. But I said something about, well, if I thought that I could make $7,000, then I would do it in a heartbeat, like yesterday. Like, it wouldn't even be a question. And you were just like, wait, do you not think you can make $7,000? And I was just like, oh my gosh, no, I don't think I can. I don't. And that's where that self-doubt just was like, right there in my face. And you helped me see that, I don't know, like you saw, I think you saw that anyway, the thing that was holding me back. And then you were able to then speak to the program in that way, like, okay, this is how the program is going to help that specifically. And then I felt like I just kind of like came out on the other side of it and viewed everything just very differently. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's exactly, there was this shift that you talked yourself through. So now from like my answer, from a coach's perspective, right? So I get to that part, we give the price, and then like, and you said to me, like, I feel like I want to vomit. Like, I remember you saying that to me, and I don't know if this is the point where I said this, but I'm like, you should feel that way. Like, this should make you sick. Like, this should stretch you. I said, and I always turn it into a lesson for my end, because that's what I do as I teach this, because I'm helping you do this. Is like, imagine what it's like for me to ask that price. Like, as a coach, if we're not asking for a price that makes us a little sick to our stomach, then we're not stretching ourselves. And if our clients are just like, okay, sure. It doesn't mean great if they can afford it, but everyone, it's all about the value, right? That's the whole point of this. Is not about the money, even when people say it's about the money, but it's that stretching that's so important. And I remember when exactly I said that, I'm like, you should feel this way. Mm-hmm. This is how it feels when you're ready to be stretched. But that's where I was sitting back, as you kept talking. It wasn't like a conclusive statement, right? You didn't say like, Jeff, you know what? With everything we have right now, I just can't afford this. Thank you so much. And then it didn't conclude. You were talking. And that's where I was like, I think I could feel that you wanted to do it. And I clarified that with you, and you agreed. And then I felt like you were talking yourself through to figure out how you could do it. Is that true?
Yes.
And because that's what you were sharing, right? It's just like you were, I at one point I was like, oh, she's trying to convince herself to do this thing. And that's why I sat back and I listened, because I knew there was a block and I just didn't know what it was yet. And you didn't know what it was yet either. And that's why it's good to hear that feedback from you is like, it felt like a coaching call. It's not a sales call. Like as we do this as coaches, it's not a sales call. It's complimentary session. You can call it, you can wrap it up however you want it to. But like at the end of the day, what I understand is great selling is actually coaching. With the only agenda is helping someone to a comfortable decision either way. And so then Amber, you got to that point where, and I remember too, is like, it was an aha for the both of us. Like, you don't believe that you can earn $7,000 or the cost of the program through your coaching. And that was like that money belief that we started like looking into. And I was like, oh my gosh. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. That's when you start to shift around. So talk us through like towards the end of that. Like we went 90 minutes that day, which I'm fine with. I had the space, and I'll tell people I've been there before with people where I didn't have it. I had the 90 minutes on my calendar, and luckily you did too. But I've had like 60 minutes aside, and then we got to that point where we were not into it yet. And I just, with the client, I'm like, listen, I feel like this conversation deserves to continue on. Would you agree? And they would say yes, most likely. Do you have a little bit of time later today or tomorrow? And I would book a time ideally as soon as possible to continue that conversation. Because I could tell she was, Amber was like, I got to figure this out. So now we get towards the end of that conversation. Talk to us like where you were at, what you were thinking, feeling.
I was so excited. I was excited and I was scared because I was like, this is me doing this, which is the thing I've struggled with, which I hear all the time from coaches, but it's hard to know what to do and when to do it. And it's also scary because I do have a lot of self-doubt because it's a whole new adventure. And this was me coming face to face with like the biggest move that I've made in the direction of building my business that I've done. So I'm like, if I do this, I'm like doing it. I'm doing it for real. I'm not just like, oh, maybe I can do this today and maybe I'll talk to this person. It's like, no, this is like me doing it.
So you had to check how serious you were.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when we ask our clients, so when you got someone on the other end of a complimentary session and we're talking about the price, and if this is assuming it's not just like, yeah, that's great, let's do this, means they're bought in, there's value there. If there's hesitation around anything, whether it's money or anything else they're going to give you as a potential objection, but especially on the price, what that does is I'm not just saying a higher price for the sake of a higher price, but charging what we're worth and challenging yourself and your clients from a financial standpoint is it actually shines the light more intensely on how bad they want it. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm hearing, right? It's like, you're not going to just invest this money. That's way more than you thought it ever would be, or even you would have thought about asking for or paying for. You're not going to just do that if you weren't super serious about your business, moving it forward, and also the value that I was bringing in the program, correct? Correct. Mm-hmm. So those things were locked in. It now is a matter of how serious were you and your beliefs. Mm-hmm. So now, but you said, I bring this back because this was about the money objection, right? Mm-hmm. And you said I can't spend that. I remember the exact words, but you're like, I can't do that. And I gave you the option. I'm like, listen, I can break up the payments however you want. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to make that very easy. And you're just like, so what was it? It wasn't the money at all. Talk about like why you said the money. And obviously the money is a consideration. Sure. We're not saying it's not a consideration. You're going to figure this out and what this looks like within your household. Talk that through a little bit just so people can hear that side.
Yeah, I think it was helpful to feel it and experience it. I think when I talk with clients now, I think that's just a natural thing for that to come up because that's how we feed ourselves. So it's like that basic need. So it's going to just trigger fear, or it could trigger fear. I think for me, the shift was really deeply understanding the transformational aspect of it. So I'm not just paying for this elusive coaching. I'm not just paying for steps to do. I'm really investing in myself, my future self. Like, that's what I'm actually doing. And that's just kind of a no. If you have them, I mean, I understand some people may not literally have it. But if somebody does have the money and they want to transform their lives and you can really help them, then that it's just such a beautiful thing. So that was the shift for me, was really understanding on a experiential feeling level of like feeling that relief of, oh my God, like I can actually move towards my dreams and shift out of just this like stuck. I can shift out of it so much quicker and get to that place that I want to be. And that's what it's about.
Yes. So you had energy blocks. Sorry.
Yes. Lots of energy blocks.
And you couldn't move forward. And that's essentially what we did in that conversation was, like you said, it was a coaching conversation.
Oh, yes. It was very powerful.
What was your experience from a potential customer, if you will, in a sales experience, right? Because at the end of the day, we can wrap this up, like I said, however we want. But what was your experience in terms of the feel of that all, going into this process excited, then being like, oh my God, I feel sick to my stomach, like I'm going to vomit. And then, 90 minutes later, now you didn't hire me then, right? Let's actually go there right now. Sorry. How did we leave it?
I said I wanted to think about it. Like I wanted to do it, but I wanted to think about it some more. And you asked me, well, okay, well, what does that look like? When do you want to regroup, if you will? So yeah, I wanted time to think about it. I like to follow my gut, and I was just like 100% gut in. But I also was like, you know what? I want to just have the weekend to just let me mull over this in more of an intellectual way, make sure I'm not crazy. And yeah, and you were respectful of that. You were like, okay, cool.
So now I got I need to think about it. And I clarified with you, right? Like you said, exactly what you just said. I'm like, I feel like emotionally, gut-wise, because you did use that word on the call, gut-wise, I'm in. I said, correct me if I'm wrong. That's where you're at, but you just need to like think this through. And you're like, yes. Mm-hmm. And then, case in point, you just said that. I asked, great, no pressure, but how long do you need? Right? I had to have a follow-up. And I think you said something like, well, if you want to follow up with me, you can follow up with me. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And with no time frame. And I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, follow just in general, like when? Like I need to, like, I'm going to be thinking about this. I'm like, do I do this? Do I follow up with you on Saturday? Like, yeah. So I had to clarify. And I'm like, so how would you feel if we set up a time to talk, like on Monday or early next week, mm-hmm. as a follow-up to this conversation? How does that sound? And you're like, that would be great. So I took something that you said that was very vague, like, yeah, you could follow me, whatever. Like, okay, that's the worst thing you could have as a coach, because now we're thinking like, when do we follow up? So how was that on your end when you were vague and said, you can follow up with whatever, to me saying like, how would you feel about setting up a call on Monday? And this way you can let me know what you decide and go from there.
It was really great because again, it's like, it was just proven point that I really need someone to help me stay on track. And it was clear that you knew what you were doing and had a process. And it felt like, okay, now let's get back on track. So it felt really good for me. It was like, oh yes, good. keep me on track. Let's do this on Monday. Let's keep it moving. So it felt good. Yeah. I was like, yeah, let's keep it moving.
Perfect. People need that guidance, right? They need that structure. And that just also shows what we do as a coach, right? We hold them accountable. We give them some guidelines and say, all right, so it's not saying when you're going to do this. And they're like, I don't know, sometime. It's like, all right, well, so what would Friday feel like? And start shaping it up a little bit and seeing how they react. So now we go away from there, and then just tell us a little bit about the weekend and what was going through your mind, and at what point did you decide, like, I'm doing this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I definitely did the human thing where I like talked myself out of it, back into it like 100 times, which, I figured I would, that if I was given that amount of time, there would be lots of like, I'm all in, just kidding, I'm out. So there was that. And then I think I don't remember like how or why, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to see what other people have experienced. That would be helpful. That would be, smart to look at. So I found your website, and you had these interviews where you interviewed people like a year after working with you, and just hearing everybody's stories, I was just like, oh, this is so beautiful. Everybody was so confident in their coaching and in themselves, and talked just so positive. I don't know. I loved it. If somebody just happens across this, go back and watch all those videos on there, because they're just so inspirational. So yeah, so I spent a lot of time with my family, but then also when I wasn't doing that, I was just like binging all those videos on your website.
Those are the success stories.
Yes.
And so if you can remember this, because this is all in the moment right now. We didn't plan any of this. At what point, if you can just tell us, did you decide I'm doing this? Mm-hmm. If there was a point.
So I just kept going back to my gut, and just the way things had aligned for me to get here. And I think when we talked, you said, when would be the ideal time to do this? And I said, like last year, I don't know, 2 years. I think I kept coming back to this place of, okay, I've just been like doing things, like just hoping and just not really having a lot of direction, and just that feeling of like wanting to move from point A to point B. I mean, like everything that we want to do as a coach is what I was feeling. I was like, I feel like this program can help me achieve my dreams. And that was so powerful to me. I'm like, I want that. I need that.
Because when you came to the call on Monday, a couple of days ago, you had worked out the financial plan in terms of how you were going to pay for it and everything. So there was some point within that frame where you just trusted it to look at the money part, figure out the path forward, and we move forward on Monday. So super excited about obviously working with you, but thank you so much for taking the time to share this back and forth dialogue. So I really believe this will help a lot of people, a lot of coaches who get into the situation. I'm curious for you, now going to be doing this in your coaching business. Mm-hmm. What do you feel you've learned as a result of this that you're going to be able to take away and benefit from as you are in the position that I was dealing with maybe someone like yourself?
Mm-hmm. I mean, gosh, I learned so much. I mean, TBD how I handle it in real life, but I feel so much better because my block has been released. I don't feel that like, oh my God, like here it comes. It's just like, oh yeah, like if it comes, we'll roll through it and see what's there and see if they want to do this. And if it's, I don't know, like I just, backing up to the very beginning of the call, just I didn't sense in a weird way that you were like, oh, is this a good fit? Like it wasn't weird. It was like good. It felt good. And so I learned that. So I can see where when I talk with clients and we're having this dialogue, like I want to know if I can help this person, because if I can't, I don't want to waste their time. I want to help people. That at my core, I want to help people transform. And if I don't think that I'm the right person, then I want to get them connected with the right person. So I appreciated that within our call. And then I really appreciated the fact that you took so much time. It meant so much to me because when I realized in a powerful way, even though I know that I have self-doubt, but it was just like right there in my face, I felt like you took the time to help me see, oh, we can work through this and I can help you. Mm-hmm. And that I appreciated so much. And I'm like, but that's what I want to do for clients. I want to work with female midlife women that are stuck in that place where they're just face to face with, my life doesn't look the way that it used to, and what do I do, and I feel miserable, and like I want to help women through that. And it helped to see the conversations that can happen so organically, not in a salesy way, but just like I can really help you, and really listening to what they're saying, because everybody's journey is different. But if I really listen and think I can help, then helping me paint that picture of how I can help that person, and then letting them decide.
Yes.
And then, like you said, you didn't give up on me, which I appreciated so much. And it really just spoke so much to that self-doubt. I was just like, I feel like he believes in me. And I needed that.
Yes.
So I'm a coach. And all the time I'm like, well, I'm a coach. I can just coach myself. But in that call, it was evident that no, like I felt the power of coaching for myself, even as a coach. I was like, no, I need a coach.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a coach, but I felt that was a lot of my learnings, is like, oh yeah, like I really can help people. And it doesn't have to be this like, hey, maybe you want to do this. It's like, hey, maybe you want to do this. I can really help you. But also my other learning was, if, when I ask people, hey, let's go through this coaching. I can help you transform. I can help you get out of that and into thrivement is what I call it. But I want to have like this really kick butt program. I want to have like everything there. So that was really motivational to me too. It's like, okay, yeah, like I want to help people. And then how can I build the best program for midlife mamas that are just going through it? I feel really inspired to do that, because I just want it all to be there so I can help people. Instead of just being like, I don't know, like what do I do? So yeah, it was a great call. It was a lot of learning for me, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that, right? And one thing I say that you said that I want to highlight is that that's our job as coaches, like as we're taking someone through a process, is like to believe in somebody and fight for them more than they believe in themselves, and more than they're willing to fight for themselves. Because that's what I believe we are as a coach, and I see greatness in people, and we have to recognize that you're going to see more greatness in somebody than they're ever going to see in themselves. And you're going to be believing them more than they can believe in themselves. And that's powerful. And that's why like that conversation went on. And there was a back and forth energy there. It wasn't just like I could tell you were getting, you're done, you're getting ready to go off the line. You were sitting there and I was sitting there and holding that space. And that's what we do as coaches. Sometimes we have time restrictions based on, time restrictions, but always create that space for this and ask, I feel like there's more to this conversation. Are you willing to get on a call an hour from now or tomorrow? Find that, but always go back to that person. And even when someone says no, like if you had gotten off that call and let's say it was more conclusive and it was more like, Jeff, maybe you just heard closed down. Like you had a willingness to explore your thoughts, but there's some people that will close down and shut down that and say, thank you. I just can't do this, Jeff. I can't do this. And then I can feel that door shutting. But also I can feel there was a strong energy, like a wanting forward movement. And let's say we get up, I can appreciate that. Listen, if something changes, let me know. I'm not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So then we go away from that call. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you a day later, 2 days later, maybe after the weekend. In that case, it was a Friday. It would probably have been on a Monday or through the weekend. And I'm going to fight for you still. And I'm going to go like, Amber, you know what? I just felt like your gut was telling you that you were all in, but and I would just speak my thoughts there. I just feel like you were holding yourself back. I felt like your gut was telling you you're all in and you want to do this and this is your dream program and you really believe I can help you. The timing was right, but yet there were so many other blocks you were having around this that were all in your head: fear, doubt, overwhelm, insecurity. And my gut's telling me that you want to move forward. You're just not allowing yourself to find a way. And so, if all those things are true and you feel that way, I'm inviting you back to a call to explore this. And if not, no worries at all. I wish you the best. Once again, I'm not going anywhere. If something changed in the future, then I'm here for you. But if something's telling you, that, I've been thinking about this. Have you been thinking about this? That's what I would have done. And I don't want people to think these are tactics or whatever. Like, this is just human energy. It's kind of like in a relationship, if you really feel something about somebody and they break up with you or something like that, and then you just go back to them and go like, listen, this is how I feel, and you lay it all out there, and if you feel the same, then meet me here at this time or call me back. And if you don't feel the same way, you know what, I wish you the best, but my feelings aren't changing overnight. And then you throw it, it's putting yourself out there, and then maybe the person comes back or not. I've done that before and I've never heard from a person again. And I've also done that plenty of times where the vast majority of time people will come back and say, you're right. Let's talk about this more. So closing thoughts from you just around anything.
I guess overall, like the power of using coaching as selling, like I felt freedom in that. And like I said, TBD, because, I have a lot of work ahead of me. But yeah, right now I just feel a lot of freedom in having those conversations and presenting the opportunities for people. And the money piece just doesn't scare me as much. And I know there are going to be people that don't see it as an investment in themselves, or maybe they're just not at that breaking point where they're just like, oh my God, like I have tried everything I can to move myself out of this pit of despair, and they may just not be there yet, and that's fine too. But if I have the conversation, they may come back later. And yeah, I could truly feel that you cared, and that energy, I just appreciated it so much. And I was like, that's how I feel. Like, I take that energy when I'm talking to people of like, I truly care, and I'm going to help you. And I know that if people are investing, they're going to put a lot more work in, and we're going to get more results. So I don't feel as freaked out about like, and it's this amount of money. It's like, yeah, this is how much it is. I liked how you were so confident in it. And I was like, I want to be like that. I just like, here's how much it is. And that's, and it's not a scary thing. It's just how it is. We're going to work through it, and it's going to be fine. And it could be more than fine. So
absolutely. Amber, thank you so much. This has been so awesome for both of us, right? Like you're learning too. That's why I love doing this too. Because on my end, like I'll close with this and saying, like, I always like to ask my now clients once they hire me, especially in a process like this where there was some deliberation and it wasn't just a clean shot like, oh, they inquire or I reach out and next thing you know, they're my client, right? But especially in a situation like this, I always like to ask, and this is how this conversation started. I'm like, hey, will you get on here with me and do this? It was on Monday. I asked you out of curiosity, like, what brought you to this decision? And you started sharing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was great for me to hear, reinforce things that I either knew or I thought I knew, which now it confirmed like, oh, my instincts were accurate. So that helps me become a better coach / business person who's, getting clients, and the only way I can help people is by getting clients. Right. And then it helps you work through your process as well and teach. So I always asking your clients once they hire you. So at what point did you decide to hire me? Where did you find that value? Like, it just helps us understand that so much more. So awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to work with you, and I'm excited to get you on that page, Success Stories page, at some point in the future as well.
Yay. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.